Hi, my name is Valerie Faltis, or I should say was Valerie Faltis, and I met Steve Truitt in December of 2012. I met him through my sister, who actually recommended me to him for business consulting. And what we actually ended up doing was a combination of business consulting, and he ended up being my personal success coach. Steve and I decided to work on the area of relationships. I'd actually worked with several life coaches before him and had not been impressed with their expertise. There was actually, I just felt they were very frou-frou and not very grounded and very, very conceptual, theoretical, or spiritual, rather than being tied to everyday life. I do believe that a lot of us have blocks in our lives. However, even if we have knowledge of those blocks, it's really, really difficult to overcome them because we're driven on some level that we can't quite reach. And what I found is that Steve has the ability, the skill, and the gift in order to reach those places to remove those blocks. So Steve basically said to me, if you don't want your life to change, then don't work with me. And I thought, yeah, this guy's full of it. I was like, yeah, time will tell, we'll see. It was very business oriented. I was working about 15 hours a day when I first met him. And although I wanted to be in the relationship and be married at some point and start a family at the age of 33, I was definitely very, very single. So once I thought about it more, and Steve and I talked, and I could tell he could see what my problem was, or see what my issues were, I was looking forward to working with him. And for a minute, I was actually afraid he wouldn't work with me. And I remember the first session we really had that was a little bit of a longer session. We sat for at least 45 minutes, and he kept asking me, so basically, what is your block, or what is your issue? What is your presenting problem? If I was a patient, what would be the presenting issue? And I said, I don't know. I could not figure out why, even though I'd meet a reasonable number of people, although I worked with physicians, although I'd been reasonably successful in my life, this one area of relationships just didn't work. I lived alone, I worked alone, and I couldn't figure out what it was. Then he proceeded to give me homework, and his homework involved, writing out different letters out, speaking to different people, speaking to family, speaking and sending letters actually to people I'd been in relationships with, two people, in order to gain understanding for what had happened. And I was pretty much dead set against many things he'd asked me to do, but after a lot of resistance and crying and frustration, I decided to do it. He and I started working together, I believe it was the first week of December, and January 23rd, 2013, my husband and I were married. So, and it was not someone I had just met, but through the coaching, actually Steve had prompted me to send a letter to an ex-fiance. And I was pretty terrified to do it, but I did do it, and we were back in touch. And after my breakthrough session with Steve, which was pretty powerful, a couple weeks later, Tony came to visit me. And through an interesting sequence of events, we were re-engaged, and shortly thereafter we eloped. And we've been married now for 7 months, and I am actually sitting in our room now as he is listening to me hanging clothes up in the closet. It's true, if you work with Steve, your life will profoundly change. There is absolutely no question and no doubt about it. I've probably worked with 5 other life coaches, and none even have a fraction of what he can do. So this is my husband Tony, and he is the love of my life, and we love our life together. I've moved actually out of California, and I moved to Indiana, where I have a growing, successful business, and where my husband and I are continuing to build our life. And he and I actually both met with Steve at some point, and Tony was also really impressed by him. Tony, what was your experience with Steve?
I was impressed at how easy it was to talk to Steve, and he was obviously talented and is talented in a way of understanding people and helping them open up and understand themselves. So I was impressed. It's not my nature to seek out in what Steve can do, and and I think that he's very helpful.
And Tony, you worked with other life coaches, right?
Worked with one. Wasn't overly impressed, but yeah, it was a painful experience.
Yeah, if you choose to work with Steve or even think about it, then something inside you wants to change, and it will. You will, without question. My life went from I went from living alone, working alone, 15 to 16 hours a day, to being married to the love of my life, and growing my own business, and just being really where I want to be, rather than hoping and longing for something that could be. So, anyways, if you're thinking about working with Steve, take the plunge. It's worth it.